and welcome to In the Garden with Flower Hill Farm, a podcast brought to you by Botanical Interests. I'm your host, Nicole Pitt. Today's episode is all about sunflowers, and I can't think of anyone else better to chat with today than my friend, Sunflower Steve. Steve is a longtime commercial cut flower grower specializing in sunflowers and perennials, but has also spent more than a decade breeding his own unique brand of sunflowers. We will have a proper hangout with Steve coming up in just a bit. But first, let's talk about the history of sunflowers. I learned so much researching for this episode. Sunflowers actually originated in what is now Arizona and New Mexico more than 3,000 years ago. They were initially used by Native Americans for food, dye, and building materials. Building materials, you ask? I ask the same. Well, dried sunflower stalks are strong enough to be incorporated into structures. If you've ever grown a massive sunflower, you'll know that the stems can be pretty indestructible. After the seeds were harvested and the plants died back, the stalks were left to dry out completely. This natural curing process in the sun and air made the stalks woody, lightweight, and sturdy. The dried, rigid stalks were used as poles or foundational materials in various semi-permanent shelters. Another highly practical use, which is still practiced today by gardeners using ancient Aztec techniques, involved using the dry, cured stalks as natural support canes to create trellises or wigwams for climbing plants like beans. I think I might try this because I never have enough support in the garden. This method maximized garden space and provided natural support without requiring external materials. And the fibrous inner material of the sunflower stalks were sometimes processed into threads and cordage, which was used for weaving into mats and baskets. And during the cold weather, the dry, woody stalks were also used as a readily available and effective fuel source for fires, providing warmth in the winter months. Who knew that the sunflower had so many uses? Even today, in modern building, sunflower stems are ground and processed into natural fibers for engineering biocomposites, providing a more sustainable alternative to petro-based products. Sunflowers have always been considered a sacred plant in the ancient Americas, a symbol of the sun. In fact, young plants are heliotropic, meaning that they turn their heads to face the sun throughout the day. This process ends once the blooms fully mature. But if you've ever seen an entire field of sunflowers go from looking from the east to the west, it's a beautiful thing. The seeds left America and were first brought to Europe in the 1500s and were almost exclusively used as a decorative garden plant for nearly 200 years. Its food potential was often overlooked. In the 1600s, it was claimed by the royals. King Louis chose the sunflower as his personal emblem, and sunflowers were grown around the country to pay homage to the king. Modern sunflowers are a globally significant crop for seeds, oils, cut flowers, and more. My favorite snack? You guessed it, sunflower seeds. Russia and Ukraine are the top producers of sunflower seeds globally, together accounting for over half of the world's production. Beyond their practical uses, sunflowers have become a global symbol of hope, peace, and resilience, especially as the national flower of Ukraine. Today, there are hundreds of varieties of sunflowers, with more being introduced every year, including some from our guest today, Sunflower Steve. More on that coming up. First, though, our seed of the day. Today, we are featuring the entire sunflower collection at botanicalinterests.com. There are 16 varieties. Today, though, I'm talking about the heirloom beauties. This seed packet has something for everyone, from lemon queen to velvet queen to autumn beauty. These branching flowers provide the perfect pollinator habitat for an entire season. If you're looking for color that lasts until the fall, these are the perfect choice. Coming up in the garden, we sit down with Sunflower Steve to talk about growing at the commercial level and how one rogue sunflower changed the course of his life. Stay with us. Welcome back to In the Garden with Flower Hill Farm. Today we are chatting all about sunflowers, and I thought, who could I have as a guest today? I have no idea. I'm just kidding. The answer was obvious to me, and today we are joined by Sunflower Steve. A lot of you guys know this guy. Steve, thank you so much for joining me. How are you?
Thank you, Nicole. No, it's so nice to see you again. It's been too long, but we're doing great. Lots of changes. I think I think back way long ago, and we can get into it, but I remember it was my first foray into social media because I avoided social media like the plague, and I saw this gal on YouTube, you, and you were going through like the 10 things that you learned about flower farming, and I was in stitches because you're everything you were talking about I had experienced, almost 20 years earlier and stuff, and I just out of the blue sent you a little email saying something like, "Don't worry, you don't know me. Don't worry, it'll get better." And from there, look where we're at. It's crazy.
And I normally don't, I get a lot of emails, right? And I don't have a chance to reply to a lot of them,
Right.
but there was something about your message that just said, this guy's legit. I got to email this
Yep.
guy back. And honestly, Steve, you have also inspired a lot of the stuff that I've done at my farm. I mean, the
Really?
picture that you sent me of your hydrangea field.
Hydrangeas. Yeah.
I mean, that was a no-brainer for me. I was like, okay, I need my farm to look just like that. So yeah, thank you for all of your inspiration through the years. It's been years that we've been chatting, hasn't it?
Yep, it has like 5 now. Yep.
Yeah. So for those who don't know you, I mean, first of all, you're in Wisconsin.
Yep.
And you've been growing cut flowers for how long now? Tell us about how you started in the business.
I grew cut flowers commercially for 22 years. I still grow them kind of for fun, but in 1999, 2000, I lost my job due to downsizing, corporate merger thingy, and I had always had an interest in the native prairie flowers, and so I was bettering our property by putting native flowers and grasses out there. And long story short, I got hurt doing something else, and I was on the couch, and I was recovering, so I couldn't do much. And I had 2 baptisias. One was yellow baptisia, or no, sorry, blue baptisia, and then it was cream baptisia. And back in 2000, cream baptisia, any local source of it, and I had a local source about 17 miles from here where I had permission to pick it off of the cemetery. And it was worth like $600 a pound or something. It was worth a lot of money. So I didn't want it cross pollinating with blue because it was kind of my little side hustle. And I told my daughters to go cut the blue baptisia down, and they put it in a vase on the mantle, and this little light bulb went off, and thought, why just sell the seeds? Maybe people be interested in the flowers. And so I went to my local florist as a kid, and he had never seen blue baptisia before. This is 25 years ago. And he was like, what is this? And I kind of explained it was here, prior to settlement. And he's like, what else is native that I've never seen before? So that whole summer, I just kept bringing him like butterfly milkweed, golden Alexanders, and 4 different types of liatris and all these different flowers. And he's just like, these are amazing. So my brain said, you lost your job. Maybe this is your next new thing. I need to find a way to make a living for my family. So I started investigating flower farming a little bit and discovered that a lot of people, the bigger people, were growing the staples, the zinnias, the sunflowers and all that, but not a lot of locally grown. And nobody was using the natives. So the natives were kind of my in. And through the next couple of years of serving about 7 florists, the gal that cuts my hair in town, her sister is actually selling to a huge retailer in the Twin City area. I'm only 45 minutes from the Twin Cities. And that's kind of a long story, but I got my foot in there again with the natives. And then she was like, hey, can you grow zinnias? I said, sure. What are they? And so, I go big and go home. I put a half acre in right away. And then, we just kept going up and up with the sunflowers. And at one time, like you, and I think I gave you this advice and you didn't heed it at the time. I said, I said, don't grow a million things. You'll drive yourself nuts. And you're trying to manage 50 different crops, 50 different microclimates. They all have diseases, bugs, and all that. I said, pare it down to some good ones. And because I did the same thing. But by year 4 or 5, I was, I had my 20. And then by 2012, we did a huge pivot because I had lost flowers where I had kind of had contracts where I had to have X amount of certain things.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat down with my wife in 2012 and said, we need to pivot. I'm going to back up 1 second. If you're going to do the flower farming thing, it's really good to have a spouse that has a steady job, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
100%.
anyway, we pivoted to high volume, just a few varieties, and just did a few things super well. So we specialized in zinnias, sunflowers, hydrangeas, peonies, snowball viburnum, and winterberry, like 6 things. And we went to just grab and go bouquets, or like 5 stem bunches or 7 stem bunches, no more mixed stuff anymore. So we really went big volume, and I landed 2 more wholesalers. So we went from small scale doing florists and farmers markets to just florists, did a little bit of wholesale to full on just wholesale. So that's kind of how my thing evolved.
Now, for those who don't understand how large half acre of zinnias is, that is a tremendous amount of zinnias to grow. And I think you were the first one. I remember you saying in the early days that you call them Skittles. And I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. When we get them all in the buckets in the cooler, I'm like,
Mhm.
it looks like a huge thing of Skittles in
It
here.
really
And,
does.
and then I was growing sunflowers at the time. I thought a lot. And then when I landed at one big retailer wholesaler, they had two sides of their business. They had one that was grab and go bouquets that went right to the supermarkets and people
Mhm.
took them. And then they had a whole designer room. And back in the early 2000s, a lot of stuff was still FTD and delivery. So they had like 20, 25 designers there constantly making stuff that was coming through for orders. So in that case, I would just deliver like 20 buckets of zinnias and 20 buckets of sunflowers and 20 buckets of Lizzies and stuff like that. So when we shifted to doing nothing but the five stemmers for the grab and go side, I said, well, how many can you take? And she said, well, how many can you deliver? And I said, well, let's kind of work this first summer out and see how it goes. And I remember her calling me up and saying, we have a truck that got hung up on the way from California. We need 800 sunflowers tomorrow for the special event that's going to be on the local NBC station or wherever. Can you supply that? And I was like, 800 at once? And she's like, yeah. And so at the time, I thought that was huge. And then, fast forward to 2012, and, we're planting 40 to 50,000 a week for 12 weeks, and we're harvesting 3 to 5,000 a day for 12 weeks. So it went from this little, and I thought 800 was big to now we're doing 3 or 4,000 a morning. So it evolved kind of rapidly and crazy.
Yeah, talk about the process of when you were growing at that maximum volume, what it was like to just plant and harvest and do all those chores. Because I remember you basically had to wear fishing gear to go harvest in the morning because the dew was so heavy.
And we wear full on rain gear. We looked like Deadliest Catch. We had full on rain gear from one head to the other. And then I think you have a YouTube video we did where it was showing me prepping the field and planting the whole field. No, and that was like one planting. I think that was probably a 30,000 flower field. But um, two things. One was for a while I had my own child labor, so it's kind of easy to do stuff. But as they started to age out, I had to hire some guys on, and I was going through a lot of my daughter's friends. I have four daughters. A lot of my daughter's friends, and I got tired of them saying, is this the right stage? Is this the right stage? Retraining people on when the right stage is to cut. So I had this idea. If I get out there at 2 or 3 in the morning with a headlamp on and I just go through every row and I see the petals just starting to lift, I would strip all the leaves off it. Then when my crew of 2 or 3 would show up at 5 or 6 in the morning, it was a no brainer. I mean, you could have taught a monkey to do it. Well, they were guys, but anyway, if you looked at the stem and there was no leaves, you just cut it. And it got to be so efficient. It was a little more work on my end, but for me, it was easier than trying to explain all the time. And I'd rather have them cut 3,000 of them and get 27 wrong because I screwed up than them taking that much time to make sure everyone's right. So, yeah, like you say, I would have to wear full on rain gear because the dew would be so heavy. I would just be absolutely saturated.
Yeah, you fully streamlined the process by doing that's one of the smartest things is stripping them so that you don't have to teach. This is when you cut it. All you have to say is if the leaves are stripped, cut it.
And the other thing was the benefit of that was we were done cutting by 8 or 9 every morning. So we never got to the heat of the day. And we would get them all in these big cubes that you see in those pictures of those before. And we would, bring 2,000 to 3,000 of them into the cooler at a time. And we cool them down for 3 or 4 hours. Then once we kind of stopped them and made them go dormant, we would load up my van and I'd go, it'd be the 3 hours of delivering in the city. So while I do that, the guys would take a little nap on the porch while the heat's getting out of the flowers. And then they would start bunching again for the next day, putting the UPC codes on. And it was just every day like that for 12 weeks. It was pretty intense, but it was once I had it streamed like that, it made it so much easier than trying to explain all the stuff. And it took a few years to figure it out.
Oh, it was genius. By the time you did, it was time well spent. Now, what variety were you growing when you were growing at that scale?
At that scale, I was only growing a couple different varieties. Like you, in the early days doing the flower farmers markets and the florists, I had like probably 15 varieties. And then as I started getting these wholesalers, they kind of dictated what they wanted me to grow. At the time, the Sunrich series as it aged, it never really tipped down. It always stayed up a little bit. So they said, hey, could you grow the Sunrich Orange and the Sunrich Gold for us? And I think by like the third or fourth year growing from, that's all I grew. I mean, I would buy 400,000 to 500,000 of just those varieties every year.
Wow. I really dropped the ball on growing my own sunflowers this year. I didn't even plant any of your seeds this year. I was just, from having surgery in the middle of summer, it really kind of threw me for a loop. But I am making a very detailed plan on my plantings for 2026 because there's nothing better than a sunflower in a fresh cut bouquet, and customers are looking for it. They're looking for it in May, and we don't have sunflowers in May.
No, neither do I.
We usually see our first ones maybe by the 4th of July here in upstate New York. I know you are maybe a week ahead of me, maybe
last
2
week
weeks.
of June, first week in July.
Okay. So we're a little bit different, even though we're a very similar zone. I think your first frost is a couple weeks before mine. So you're able to get the seeds planted out a little bit earlier.
A little bit earlier.
But talk to me about the sunflower that changed the course of your life.
Well, in 2007, I was letting one of my fields go fallow, so I planted like a cover crop, and I had a bunch of volunteers come up in there. And it was one of the fields where when I was still doing farmers markets, so I had all these different varieties out there. And some were pollenless and some did have pollen. So there obviously was some mixing going on that I didn't know about, because that field was supposed to be nothing but sterile flowers. And there was several dozen that came up in that field, and I kind of didn't pay much attention when they were coming up. But then when they started to bloom, I noticed this one that looked totally different from the backside than the rest of it. It looked like a fully double teddy bear, but it was 6 feet tall. And so I came around the front side of it, and it was gold, like a teddy bear, but it had maroon down all the throats on it. And it's like, wow, that's cool. I've never seen a bicolored double flowering sunflower. And I was going to cut it down and take it in the house and show my wife, but thank God I didn't have my snippers on me. And so I'm like, I'll come back and get it later. And like anything on the farm, you do 27 other things, you never get it back until like 5 days later. I was like, by now it started to degrade and it didn't look as pretty, so I just left it. And then as I got closer to fall, I was looking at it again, thinking, I wonder if it has any viable seeds, because first of all, I think it came from a pollen variety. Second of all, with all the petals, where are the reproductive parts? Because I didn't see any stamens, I didn't see any pollen. So I just, out of curiosity, I cut the head, dried it, and I believe it was 572 seeds. I went through every one of them, squeezed them to see if there was something in it, and 12 of them actually had a little nut in the inside. And that began just kind of planting those out the next year and monkeying around with those while I was building the cut flower business. So over the next 4 years, I was just really monkeying around them a little bit while I was really streamlining the cut flower business, and started seeing different colors. And then I noticed that the fully double ones were almost always completely sterile. And I think you mentioned that to me one time when the first seeds you grew up from me, you collected them, like, there's no good seeds here. And that's been the hard part about ramping these, scaling these up, is they don't produce a lot of seed. So I took one that had a lot of pollen but wasn't the prettiest, and I literally moved it in the middle of the night with a whole clump of dirt. And I thought it was going to die at first. It kind of did the question mark thing, but then it did pop up. I just put the two heads together every day for a couple weeks, and then lo and behold, I had a couple thousand viable seeds. And from those, I still only got 2 or 3 dozen doubles or semi-doubles, but I just kept doing it. It was kind of my break away from the grind, the daily grind of 18 to 20 hours a day for nonstop with the cut flowers. Just kind of was my little getaway to go do something a little goofy. And then I started seeing even more and more cool colors, and still I was just dabbling in it. And then COVID hit, and at that time I had still just monkeying with it. I had a lot more variety and didn't really have a plan for them. And then when I called my seed supplier and said, hey, I was going to order, 500,000 seeds, and he says, well, I have 50,000. I'm like, well, that's my bread and butter. I need to do that. I need to make money this summer. I didn't know people were going to be buying sunflowers because nobody was doing anything. So I reached out to another seed company who I had an account with earlier, and they said, yeah, we'll sell you the seeds, but we won't give you the discount. And I said, I don't care. I just need the seeds. And that got my brain thinking. Right before I hung the phone up, I said, do you guys buy seeds? And she said, what do you mean? And I said, well, I have this flower I've been working on. I don't know if it's good for the floral industry or whatever, but I can show you pictures and see if somebody would be interested there. So she got me in touch with a guy, and it was really, I mean, I was so excited at first, and it was really good. And he came here at the farm, and he looked at everything, and I sent seeds to their test farm in California, and they grew them. And then he came back, and it was looking really good. And he basically said they want to go another direction. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, okay. So that kind of fizzled out on me. Well, in the meantime, I talked to another guy and put me in touch with another big seed company, and they were all excited and they kind of wanted to do it. But then they sent me this contract, and thank goodness for the internet, because back in the day, if you had something really cool like that, your only recourse was to go to a big seed company. And they were offering me, like, I think it was 2% of net sales. And I was like, really? After 15 years of me putting all my time and effort into this thing, and you sell it, I'm going to get that small of an amount? That doesn't seem right. Of course, they're a big company. They're like, well, we do the sales, the marketing, the packaging, and all that. And I was like, yeah, I think I'll try it on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And because you and I had at that time multiple conversations, you had mentioned Erin from Floret several times.
Mm-hmm.
And I was clueless. I had no idea who she was. I had my head down here in Wisconsin doing my thing. And so it was like 2 a.m. I woke up and I thought, who is Floret? So I Googled it, and I saw they started in the garage like we did, and it was a family thing. And at a certain point, she went on education and doing, what do you call them when people come over?
Yeah, she does her courses and workshops and stuff. Yeah.
And so I thought, but she was starting the seed company, or she was doing this breeding. So I sent her a picture and said, I didn't know anything about selling seeds or doing any of that, but I'm a cut flower grower. I've developed these flowers. I think they're pretty cool. Please get back to me if you're interested. And the next day I got an email. And so then we talked for several hours the first time. And then we talked again, and I emailed again. And then I realized she was kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
And so I had no clue. So I called her up and I said, I would like to come out and see your place and just talk to you and your husband and your crew and kind of get a feel for you before I kind of turn my babies over. And I went out there and we had a great meeting. And I came back. My full intention at that point was the way I say it is, they had this airport with all these planes, basically all the different zinnias. And I had this new plane, the sunflower. So I just wanted to give them this new sunflower so they could launch it for me. Mm-hmm. And halfway through that summer, she called me and she said, you don't need our help, Steve. And I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, you can do this on your own. I'm like, no, I know cut flowers. I don't know how to sell seeds. Or she goes, no, you can do this. You're gonna do way better doing this on your own and stuff. So she kind of forced me out of my comfort zone of the cut flowers to do the seeds. And so for the next 2 years, I tried to do both. And then it was 2023. I just said, I can't do both anymore. So I went full time into seeds in 2023. And it's been going, it's different than cut flowers, but I'm glad I turned the chapter. Mm-hmm. And there's been a lot of things that have come from it. In fact, I met Kevin from Epic Gardening, mm-hmm. and I've sent him some seeds. I met a lot of people through my initial contact with you, not wanting to be on social media, and you dogged me to get on Instagram. Like, get on Instagram, and I'm like, no, I don't want to do it. It's just a cesspool and all that. And I've met more good has come from it than bad. Okay. There have been some things that have been negative about it, and I've learned to kind of let it roll off my back. But for the most part, it's been a great experience. And it's weird when I meet people that know who I am in Florida on vacation at a zoo. I ran into a lady. I was wearing my shirt, and she said, "You know him?" And she's like, "My gosh, you are him." We had a conversation. It was fun, and I've run into people, and it's humbling, and it's fun.
Yeah, you have one negative experience compared to 99, and you just have to push aside the negative people and the negative noise and just focus on the people who are supportive. And yeah, the internet's a scary place, but as long as you find your people, you're good to go.
It's hard though. My sales background in a advertising field, if something wasn't right with the customer, mine was, my brain was always try to find out what's wrong, engage them, and fix it. And so when I first got some negative things, and some of it wasn't even about the flowers, it was about I would do falconry with the birds, and they thought that was terrible. Anyway, so I tried to engage them, and I realized, you know what? There's some people you're just never going to change their mind on, and it's been a great ride. My kids, they've had some experiences too. We're like, oh my gosh, your dad's sunflower, Steve, and they just like. I had this one. I won't say who he is, but he's a country music guy, and he's a huge star. and I met him and his wife. And when
you told me about this. Yes.
Yeah, when their son found out they were coming to have lunch with me, because I just happened to be in Texas in the same general area, because I had sent them some flowers for something else or some seeds for something else. Their son goes, "Oh my gosh, he's Instagram famous," and I'm like, "Do they know who you are?" Because he has millions of followers, and he thinks I'm like, the kid needs to know who his dad is. But anyway, yeah, that was flattering too.
Aw. So how many? Well, there are a couple things I want to talk about. Number one, I want to talk about how many different sunflowers have you created, different varieties, and then talk about the process of pollinating and breeding, because a lot of people are curious about breeding and how that works.
Yeah, and like I say, if somebody does want to get into this, that the beauty of the internet and having your own seed company is this option wasn't here 10 years ago. So if you were a backyard gardener, you had something cool, you either didn't pursue it or you pursued it with somebody that basically took your stuff and they made all the money, got all the credit, and you didn't get much of it. So that being said, right now I have I have 3 varieties, and they're still all in what I call a mixed form. Like on your hat there, my hat.
Yep.
I have well over 100 individual varieties I'm working on.
Wow.
But it's hard to get them to replicate, and because I'm not doing cloning, they're not all F1 hybrids where they're the exact same thing. So you'll get slight variation in them. But right now, this is the first year I have a lemon drop mix, I call it. It's all lemon colored ones. It's singles, semi-doubles, and doubles, green faced and dark faced. And I had it pretty solid last year as a variety, but we had so much rain. I think we had like 36 inches of rain in 32 days. And it got such bad powdery mildew, I lost like 90% of the crop. So so I lost a lot of good genetics too. But it's solid in its color form, but I wasn't able to scale up. So it's been 3 or 4 years since I've been working on that. And it seemed like every time I got hit, I could only do these little sales of excuse me, hang on, I gotta take a drink. So I could only do these little fundraiser sales, where I could only offer 500 or 1,000 packs because I couldn't afford to get rid of all my breeding stock. So back to your question, I have 3 varieties right now. One's called the Van Gogh's Fantasy Mix, and that's basically a combination of everything that's been produced on the farm. I plant one field of everything that's ever evolved from here, and I want all those genes mixing. So then I'll go through and I'll look at 100,000 flowers, and I might find that next one unicorn or 2 or 3, and then I put a bag over it. It's like an organza bag.
Yep.
Put a bag over it so it can't get cross-pollinated, and then go out every day with a paintbrush or a makeup brush and self-pollinate it, and then collect the seeds off of it. And then hopefully the next year, at least some of the seeds look like the parent plant. Sometimes you'll get 0 that look like it. Sometimes you'll go 2 or 3 years where you're getting it down where all of a sudden you've got a dozen, 2 dozen that look like it, and then all of a sudden they all disappear. It's such a frustrating thing from that standpoint. And I think that's why a lot of the big companies go with the F1 hybrids they're all clones. I found my own personal thing when I have a lot of these different clones I used to grow for cut flowers. Sometimes when you're breeding for a specific part of it, you lose other good parts of it. Like suddenly maybe you got rid of the disease resistance on it. It looks pretty, but it won't grow in my area because of my soil and my microclimate, things like that. So I've found with my flowers, I don't have a lot of those diseases. I don't have the consistency as far as color and exact shape, but I'm breeding them enough where they all look similar enough that one might have a little more maroon than lemon, and the other one might have more lemon than maroon, but they look very similar. So I've got the lemon drop mix, and I can send you some photos too if you want to like pop them up during this. The lemon drop mix. I've got the Marley mix, which is a maroon and lemon mix. It's more maroon than lemon, and that one's really. The form and function of that one is a lot more semi-doubles and doubles than singles, actually. And then I've got the Van Gogh's Fantasy Mix, which is pretty much everything. You got singles, doubles, branching, colors all across the board. It's the ultimate like party mix, if you will. So I have 3 varieties I'm selling right now. The Lemon Drop Mix did great this year, like the best harvest I've ever had. The Van Gogh's Fantasy Mix, which was done stellar the last 3 years, we suffered some setbacks on that again because of weather and storms.
Yeah.
And then the Marley mix, that one we thought we were gonna have a great harvest on. It turns out when we got into cleaning it, we didn't have near as good of pollination as we thought we did. We did get beehives put by that field, but it wasn't until about halfway through the bloom. So I think that's what happened on that one. So Probably plenty of lemon drops, probably plenty of Bangos Fantasy. The Marley mix, that one might be a little about half as much as last year. So
I think I actually have a packet of Marley mix from last year that I never planted, so I'm excited. Yes,
yeah.
something to look forward to.
Things come up with your health. The same thing for me. Long story short, my brother had a massive heart attack in July, and he's still with us, and he's still rehabbing and learning to walk again. But I usually do those giant flower murals.
Yeah.
I planted tons of flowers to those giant flower murals, and I just could never get around to it. So what we did instead, which we had time for, was we actually gave away over 1,000 bunches of flowers at the end of my driveway. I just put out a sign and said, free flowers, because the thing with my brother really made me think about a lot of things, and I wanted to brighten people's day. And I couldn't believe how many 18-wheelers, how many truckers stopped to pick up flowers.
Really?
And I'm thinking these guys are either they're gone from their wives or loved ones so long they really want to make up for it, or they really screwed up. But I had a lot.
They needed it.
Yeah, so we gave over 1,000 bunches away at the end of the driveway, 5-stem bunches. So yeah, that was kind of fun to do.
Oh, talk about the rest of the stuff that you have on your farm quickly, because there's so many things. We talked about your hydrangeas, but you also have how many different varieties of lilacs? Oh my goodness.
I have 3,000 lilacs, and I think it's 9 different varieties. Some early, mid, late blooming ones. It smells like heaven.
Yeah, we talked about the winterberry. Obviously the BAP. You've got the Baptisia.
Yep.
And there was a point in time when you were sending me some pictures of some really cool colors of that as well. Did that ever come to anything?
Baptisia? Yeah, that's one of our big projects for this year. We actually took some cuttings off some for the first time this year, and we're looking at possibly doing tissue cultures of them too. I'm still doing it. In fact, I put a video on my Instagram of how I've created some of those where I break the flower off and I take it to the other one and I take the pollen. And so, as far as if somebody wants to go on my Instagram thing, there's a couple videos on there that show how I take the pollen from one and put it on another. But yeah, that's one of our things this year. I actually did a seed sale this year where those will be in the future, will be clones of each other, but it'll just be self-cloning. So I have 2 really cool ones that I want to take cuttings from and ramp up. And it's going to be 5-6 years before I can start selling actual plants. So this year I did a little quick special sale where I sold seeds from those parent plants. So they're not going to be exact, some of them might have been cross-pollinated with some of the other Baptisias, but I gave people the genetics of those 2 parent plants, which are really, really cool. One's a triple cross and one's a double cross. And so we did a quick little seed sale of that to try to raise money for one of the greenhouses we want to put up. And they sold out like in 3 or 4 hours.
Wow.
Because I think I had 350 packets of one and 450 packets of the other. And while I can't give them the clones, they now have genetics they can mess around with, or they might get something I've never even seen. So that's kind of the cool thing about it.
Yeah, that's why I love watching people grow dahlias from seed, because you just never know what they're going to be. They'll never look just like the parent plant, but you could come up with the next big dahlia. So it's always exciting to start things from seed. It's like little magic.
Yep.
So the farm.
Go ahead. No, that's what I even say about my sunflowers is even if you get the lemon drop mix or the Marley mix, you might still get an outlier, that looks nothing like the pack, but that's kind of the fun thing. You might get that unicorn. I've got several pictures from people. I'm like, can you send me the seeds for those? Because those are really cool. But and one gal actually did send me the seeds, and I think actually there's only 2 viable ones out of like the 500 she sent me. But that's the cool thing about not having a clone. It's like with the dahlias, it's the surprise in it.
Mm-hmm. That's my favorite part. Now, since you stopped growing commercially, you've had a lot of changes going on at the farm. You put up some new structures. Like, talk about the changes that you've had to make in order to make this Sunflower Steve work.
Yeah, it's a whole different ballgame when you don't have to refrigerate stuff and keep it cool, and it's so perishable. It's taken more money than I thought it would. You think, you just put up a building, get a seed packer and all that. But yeah, my followers have been very great too. When I've done these little fundraisers where I only offer like 1,000 packets of seeds. One of them helped me purchase a $42,000 seed packer. So I have this automated seed packing machine, and we put up for the first time. I have everything in one place. My garage is where we started, but then we had stuff in the garage, and then we had stuff down in my Quonset barn, and then we had the big cooler in my Quonset barn. We had a walk-in cooler by the little garage and all that. So now I put up a really nice big barn. I had the Amish do it. I didn't want to go steel. I went wood fresh milled wood from the Amish, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And I probably went a little bigger than I should or had to, but I
Mm-hmm.
figured, real quick, happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you too.
Thank you. I figured I just turned 60 today, so I figured I'm 60 years old. If I wait another 10 years to add on to the barn, I'll be 70. So I decided I didn't want to wait 10 more years. So I went a
Yeah.
little bigger so I can grow into it. But yeah, so we have this fully a nice big barn that's climate controlled, and we can do everything in there no matter what the weather. Back in the first few days of the seed thing, be like, oh, it gets nice out. We can put all the seeds out, let them dry in the sun. It's like, oh crap, a storm's coming quick. We're getting them all back in the
Yeah.
barn, and now we can do everything in the barn.
Oh, it's
So
so convenient. It's a game changer. We're in the process too here at both my farm and at the Boone Street Nursery of doing major renovations. And we were told to kind of expect the price, like have your budget and then double it. And that's going to be closer to what you end up
right,
spending.
right. Well, actually, what happened for me, mine almost did double. But the weather was so bad, and with the Amish building it, it took so long for them to be able to get done with their other jobs because of the weather being bad, that I actually added more stuff that had I built it the way I wanted to, I wouldn't have been happy.
Yeah.
But that delay of almost 3 months, I made it way more energy efficient. I put in a heated floor, which is amazing. So I did all these things.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, it's
Yeah.
65 degrees in there all the time. 3,200 square feet of cement that's constantly kicking off heat. It's for the first time in my adult life, I can park a vehicle in there at 20 below zero, and then get out in the morning and I have to start it up 10 minutes early. I can just start it up and drive right up.
Wow.
So it took 60 years to get it, but hey, it's nice.
You're giving me ideas for my buildings for sure.
Yeah. We should talk about really quick because I'm just you started out as a cut flower grower.
Mm-hmm.
I started as a cut flower grower. And what I've told people is while you're doing that, you're going to stumble into something else, some other opportunity. And while I did cut flowers for 22 years, because I was kind of the only guy doing it 25 years ago, other opportunities are going to come along. Because look, you did not see yourself owning a nursery, I'm sure.
No, not at all.
And so just keep when you're doing this flower thing and you're enraptured in it, other opportunities will come that don't blow them off. Like the whole seed thing. I was going to hang up the phone. I'm like, well, maybe the seed company would be interested in my seeds, and it's evolved. And I've seen at least 4 or 5 other flower farmers I started following like 5 years ago, and they're doing different. Some of them are writing books now. Some are having growing guides. Some of them are going out lecturing and stuff. And I'm sure it's not where it started for them. And so that's kind of the cool thing to see. So anybody that's getting into cut flowers really early on, keep your eyes open for that. The second thing is when I first met Aaron from Floret, I had no idea how many people just grew flowers just for the fun of it, just to look at them. Because my mindset was cut flower, cut flower, cut flower.
Commercial. Yeah.
Exactly. So when she said a lot of her people that buy her seeds are just your backyard grower, that changed my mindset of it doesn't have to look 100% the same all the time. It doesn't have to bloom in exactly 65 days. And so then I started letting the genes be a little more wilder, and I've come up with a lot more cool things because of it. But I had no idea people just planted, 50 sunflowers to look at them, because mine was like, how can you make money off it? So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Backyard gardeners are the best. They just want to get that feeling of accomplishment by putting the seed in the ground and watching something bloom, and just like we do, but just on a much smaller scale.
It amazes me when some people will come to the farm. I'll invite somebody, or actually I think I told you I was on CBS Sunday Morning News.
Yes,
I
love that. Mm-hmm.
And I've seen them. I've seen these flowers for so long. Not that I'm jaded, but I'm used to them. Mm-hmm. And when you see somebody come in for the first time and they see something I've been working on, and they're like they're just blown away, and you can see the emotions, they goosebumps, and you can get all giddy about it. You're like, I remember that feeling myself. And so I forget that's what a lot of people, why they're planting their garden, just to get that hit of joy.
Oh yeah, Steve, they're special. They're special. You might forget it because you're in the thick of the business part of it, but yeah, they're gorgeous. Yep. But I have one more question for you, but we're going to take a quick break and come right back with garden inspiration from Steve.
Uh-oh.
I know. Okay, we are back for our final segment of today, and it's called Sow and Tell. And this is where we feature stories of garden inspiration. So, Steve, tell us, what inspires you in the garden?
Now that I'm doing breeding, it's the excitement, like when I plant something, and it's It's like a little kid. I go out, has it got a bud yet? Has it got a bud yet? Okay. Oh my gosh, it looks like the petals are a certain color. Is it going to be like this? It's going to be like a parent plant. And then for me, it's waiting to see when I mix this pollen with that pollen, am I going to get something cool? And so it's what inspires me is to keep doing it to see what new things I can create. And short of my kids being my legacy, for it, the more as I turn 60 today, more I think about it when I'm long gone, some of the beauty that I've helped create will still be here.
Yes.
And I feel very blessed that God gave me that one flower back in 2007. And then some of the new things, the variegated stuff I'm working on, the purple foliage. And so I get inspired when I see something new and I think, can I take that to the next level? And can I create enough of those where I can spread that out and it will be here forever? So that's kind of what inspires me. That can I keep creating something new that will bring people joy? And for me now, it's so cool. I'll get pictures from around the world, which I don't know how that happens because I don't sell around the world. I
You
can't.
don't sell internationally.
Some of my seeds are getting to India and Nepal and stuff. But to see that something I created in this little spot in Wisconsin is giving somebody joy now over in Indonesia. That is like, and me, not like through some big company that then went up and marketed it and told people this is the next best thing. They're buying it from me because they know my story. And that's what inspires me.
Ah, beautiful. I have a new t-shirt idea. Steve, the flower scientist. You're out there like a science lab.
It's funny. Mo Rocca from CBS, when that was one of his questions, are you like some sort of mad scientist? And I'm like, well, I think it's more just my creative side that says, what if? What if? And you get a lot of disappointments there too. I think people think breeding is so easy. You have a red flower and a white flower, you put them together, you get a pink one. You might still get a red one, but it might be short or it might be tall or have big leaves. There's all these other genetics that come out. But the really cool thing, if you think about it, is that one flower from 2007, every other thing that's come from here, the genes were unlocked from one flower. I mean, the 100 different ones I'm working on right now and the tens of thousands I didn't decide to go with because there's only so much time in the day. I have packets of seeds I'll never get to because I have so many cool ones. It's just amazing that it was all unlocked from one flower, and somebody else could do that in their own little garden too now.
Yep. Well, that's very inspiring in itself. Well, Steve, I'm so happy that we got to hang out and catch up. It's been a couple of years, I feel like, that we've had a face-to-face. So let's not wait so long next time. Okay? We will link all of your information, your website, your Instagram, and all that stuff in the description of today's episode. And everyone can follow along with you there. So, Okay, Steve, big hug. I'll see you soon.
All right, see you later.
Happy birthday.
Good luck on Wednesday.
Thank you. It was so good to catch up with Steve. Okay, now we have another garden inspiration story. And this one comes to us from a longtime follower, Joan in Ohio.
My name is Joan Zacharias, and I run JC Flowers in Valley City, Ohio. I was inspired to become a flower farmer because I grew up on a dairy farm and have always loved growing fruits, vegetables, and flowers. When my daughter got married, I created her wedding flowers and absolutely loved the experience. Today, I farm on 3 acres, specializing in sunflowers. I sell my flowers at a local farmer's market and at my roadside stand.
Thank you so much, Joan. I love the earrings. You too can be featured here in our Sow and Tell segment. Just like Joan, send us your stories of garden inspiration to Nicole at botanicalinterests.com. Thank you for hanging out with me today. I'm your host, Nicole Pitt, and you can find more of my garden adventures over on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook at Flower Hill Farm. And of course, all of the seeds and garden goodies we talked about today are waiting for you at botanicalinterests.com. Or check your favorite local garden center to see if they carry botanical interests, like we do here at the Boone Street Nursery. Save 5% by using the code INTHEGARDEN. Want to see what we're talking about? Subscribe to Botanical Interests YouTube channel for the video version of this podcast. We will see you next time in the garden. I'll meet you there.